lean into our strengths, but move our weaknesses up to a standard of competency. And you can only do that if you have somebody kind of talking and pouring into your life in a leadership role.
Do you want a wealthy retirement without worrying about money? Welcome to the Retire in Texas podcast, where you will discover how to enjoy your faith, your family, and your freedom in the state of Texas. And now, here's your host, financial advisor, author, and all-around good Texan, Darryl Lyons.
Hey, this is Darryl Lyons, CEO and co-founder of PAX Financial Group, and you're listening to Retire in Texas. This information is general in nature only. It's not intended to provide specific investment, tax, or legal advice. Visit paxfinancialgroup.com for more information. Visit Pax Financial Group, go to the Contact Us button, have a non-threatening conversation with a financial advisor for 15 minutes just to see if it's a good fit. So I want to encourage you to do that, because I couldn't even do this show if Pax Financial Group didn't allow it to happen. So what I love about this show is it's not a commercial. I was driving this weekend and I was turning on Saturday, and man, the financial advice shows are just commercials, and a lot of them are annuities, and they're just really good salesmen. I would say that not the greatest salesman, and so these shows are information only, and you believe me if you want, but I just sincerely care about the well-being of our community and the financial well-being, and so that's a calling for me. So I want these shows to be helpful to you, and the idea of making them commercials all the time just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it will one day. Maybe I'll be like, man, I probably should use this time more effectively. But for now, as long as you're listening, I think that's the main thing. We're seeing viewership or listenership go up, and you're sharing it with others, and people are very interested in digesting the content, and it's making a difference. Then I'll keep doing it. So please share. That's my commercial. That's my pitch. Okay, but today I want to do a little shift. I do want to talk about leadership. I don't talk about it enough. It's nebulous. But it's important. You know this. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything. And so we have to talk about leadership. And if you're not in a leadership role, you'd be surprised, because you probably are. And it could be a leadership relative to your siblings, relative to your parents, relative to your kids. And leadership is really influencing others. And oftentimes it's the transferring of confidence to somebody else. And so we can't discount this leadership role that we play in the circle that God's given us. We can't discount it. And there's the wherewithal that we need to have to be able to refine it, to be able to improve outcomes from people's lives. So I want to digest that. I would just call these leadership musings from me personally, and there's 10 of them. And I've kind of broken them up into 3 groups. And so I'm just going to kind of have a dialogue with you about some leadership stuff that I think are important for you to think about in your life. And I'll kind of weave in here some financial conversations as it's relevant. But first, I want to just talk about historically in your life, in my life. Number one, I want us to pause and just think about who played a leadership role in your life, both good and bad. I know that early in my life, they say get good mentors. So when I first got into the financial industry, I was really, my number one priority in getting in the financial industry was finding a good mentor, because I really didn't know how to navigate the nuances of the financial markets. I had read Michael Lewis's The Liar's Poker, and I just had realized that this financial market was much more than a college degree could help me with. So I know I needed mentors, but the first couple mentors I had really let me down because they lacked integrity. And I was so bummed. It really, really hurt me. And so I failed to really ever get another mentor in this business. I really didn't. All I did was observe other people that I wanted to model myself after, but I never really reached out and said, hey, will you mentor me in any capacity in the financial business? Because the previous ones had let me down so much that all I did was just observe the other ones. But I took some great notes. But what God did do is he brought other mentors in my life that weren't in the financial business, but just poured into me other ways. Let's see, Dan Miller is one I talked about before. He has recently passed away. He wrote 48 Days to the Work You Love, if you haven't read his stuff. He just really helped me think about a lot of things. When I think about Dan, I think about how he was just, the person in front of him was the most important person in his life. And you felt that. And I long to have that same, I want to say aura, but really attitude. And then the other one, there's more than a handful. If I'm forgetting anyone, let me know. But I say let me know. You'll ping me. I apologize. But Bill Loveless, who he was a very important mentor to me, taught me about what it means to really be a Christian. I don't think I had to figure that part out yet. and what it means to be a Christian is to abide. And so that was beautiful. Those that know, I have a great relationship with David Robinson at the San Antonio Spurs. I'd consider him a mentor. Trying to think of a few others. Bill Sitter of C12, Rob Wayner, C12. So it's just some really awesome guys. If I told Rob that, Rob's like, hey, yeah, I may be your mentor, but you're my mentor. It's like this mutual mentoring. And so we have this great relationship that way. But man, God was really awesome that he put some good people in my life to mentor. And I hope that's the case for you. So that's number one. I want you to pause. I reflected on the people who let me down. I just acknowledge that. And then I also reflect on the people who came in. Number two, I'd like for you just to think about your strengths. If I were to ask you to write down your strengths and weaknesses, which list would be longer? Which list would be longer? I hate to say it, but most of us would say our weakness list would be stronger. And I'm going to be honest, I would too. And that's okay. But I think what we need, and I wish we would have all had in the past, is somebody who could just speak into that a little bit more. In recent business, and I say it's recent in the last 10 years, I've seen something called 360 reviews become more prevalent. And those reviews are 360 degrees all around your head, but 360 degrees all around your life, where people are just like poking holes into your weaknesses, looking for blind spots, things that you can't see. And that's just so helpful. It's a little humbling, but that's been helpful over the years. And I think we just need somebody to say, man, I see your strengths. I see you. I see your strengths. And I want you to lean into those. And then the weaknesses, I think when it comes to giving the appropriate amount of attention to your strengths and weaknesses, I do think giving the appropriate amount of attention to your strengths is the priority, because those are the gifts God's given you. But we do need to move your weaknesses up to a minimum standard of acceptability wherever you're at in life. So for example, if you're really fumbling in speaking and you're in a business that requires speaking, even though it's a weakness, you've got to get at least to a standard of competency. So we've got to lean into our strengths, but move our weaknesses up to a standard of competency. And you can only do that if you have somebody kind of talking and pouring into your life in a leadership role. Now, number three I'd like to talk about is just the idea of discovery, which again, in this strength and weaknesses conversation, I want to say it this way. The greatest obstacle of discovery, I am repeating myself on purpose here. The greatest obstacle of discovering new things, either about yourself or about the world in general, is not ignorance. That's not the real problem. Hear me out, it's the illusion of knowledge. It's what we think is true, but it's not. That honestly, as I've navigated through life, meeting with a lot of people and having a lot of deep, intimate conversations, a lot of us have this illusion that what we believe to be true isn't. And so how do we discover truth and not live in ignorance? And we can only do that, yes, to a certain degree books, but it's really just by having a conversation. And typically it's done by somebody who is willing to lead you and guide you and give you direction. Number four, one of the most beautiful compensations in life is that no man or woman, for that matter, can sincerely help another person without helping themselves. So it's just very unique that in this leadership idea that God's orchestrated, whether you call it coaching, counseling, mentoring, whatever it is, but it's really just in this idea of leadership that you can't but receive some form of compensation. You can call it a dopamine hit or something euphoric, but it's really just something unique when you help somebody else, how it makes you feel about life in general. And so we know that there is an innate desire in all of us to lead and be led. And so when we reflect on our past, I just want you to reflect for just a moment, not only to recognize the opportunities that you had to be led, but also the gaps where you were so distracted and you were so self-centered. And I say that only because I was there, that you failed to be led and you decided to do things on your own, and how destructive that could be and the consequences of that. So I did want to take the time to discover or to talk about the first 4 points about our past and how leadership has played a role, or the lack thereof has played a role. And I want you to take inventory on, only because I want it to be a pain point to say, okay, so what do I do about that today? And so that's where we're going to go now. Let's go to today. So I'm talking about the past, now let me talk about today. So number 5, I think it's important for us to recognize that that our gift that we receive from God is our potential. It's a gift. Our gift back to God is developing it. You hear me? So our gift is the potential that we have, and our gift, giving it back to God, is our potential. And I can only imagine, as a father, when I see one of my children lean into their potential, it makes me smile, and I can't help but think that that's a reflection of how God feels about us. And so I feel like that we do have a responsibility to develop our potential. And I'm not talking about like a career, or I think that's real danger, because our culture thinks that your bank account or your success is your potential. And that's actually not it. That's where we got to kind of be careful, because culture has a different message. And in the book 18 to 80, I'm sorry. No, forgetting my books. And in Biblical Responsible Investing, I talk about the world playing checkers and Christians playing chess. And you may not be a Christian, but just know that the culture has a different framework of what success looks like, and it's usually money. And I see it all the time. I can't even tell you how many times I hear it. But for you, your potential is something unique, and it could be relative to your family or your community. And I just need you to know you've got to develop that. That's a gift to God from you. Number 6, here we are today, and I just want you to ask yourself, are you hanging out with curious people? Are you hanging out with curious people that are asking about the deep meanings of life and about people and solving problems? I'm not talking about angry politics. It gets kind of dumb after a while. I mean, you can only talk so long about, just dumb Harris and Trump stuff. Like, I get it. I understand there's deep implications for that, but there comes to a point where we got to start thinking deeply about life in general, and it takes just a group of curious people. And so I want to ask you, are you hanging around curious people? If not, maybe you can lead a group of curious people. You don't have to have all answers. You just have to know how to ask questions. And there's plenty of ways to ask questions. So either you're being led by curious people, and it may be a mutually kind of lead thing, or you're leading other curious people. Number 7, I think it's interesting for us to just think about the word guru. And so if you want to be led, sometimes we try to find this guru. And, this is not something that's in the Greek or Hebrew. It may be, but I don't think so. Guru. It seems more of a Middle Eastern word, but it is an interesting word, because gu, it means darkness, and ru means light. So somebody that's responsible for taking you from darkness to light, or taking you from, not having knowledge to knowledge, or not having wisdom to wisdom. So gu means darkness, ru means light. And I think sometimes we just need gurus in our life. And I want to say this because I think I see sometimes more potential in people than they see in themselves. Just, it's fascinating to me when I see people. I'm like, holy cow, you are just amazing. I only wish I had your gifts. But sometimes you need a guru in your life that can take you from like darkness, obscurity, fog to like, okay, I can see now. So I want you to start thinking about like maybe getting a guru, and don't be afraid to be a guru, because it's a pretty simple process. If somebody is lost and floundering, that could be a child, it could be a brother or sister. A guru is somebody, and if you have that passion in you, then it's not, because it's not without not. Your responsibility is to take somebody from darkness to light. Number 8, and this goes back to the culture thing I was saying about when it comes to leadership, is, where are you going? How do you define success? Like, I was talking to somebody the other day, and they're like, my dad, his definition of success is was he making more money than his 2 brothers? That is strict. That is actually pretty pitiful. Like, that's how you value success. And that's how you, like it blows my mind. And I realize, okay, there's an old saying that a man is only as happy as he is if he's making $100 more than his brother-in-law. And I'm like, I can't believe that's true, but it is true. That exists. So let me give you another definition of success that may help you. And then you can maybe become the leader that God's called you to be, or find leaders. But let me give you this. This is just one that I think it's worth. It may not be the right one, because I don't, when it comes to righteousness, I think is a byproduct of our relationship with God. But I think it's good either way. It's it's more of a financial or a quantitative way to think about success, but it's the ratio of talents used to the talents received. The ratio of talents used to talents received. And you need leadership to be able to get that ratio up. You need somebody, and others need that leadership too. So now moving to 9 and 10 in these leadership musings. What about your future? What do you do now? I don't think it needs to be overly complex, especially if you're leading others or if you're being led for that matter. So there was this study done, and they put a bunch of people in ice water. And so you hung out in ice water, and whoever hung out the longest, was the success. But the one thing that kept people in water longer than others? I don't know, guess. What's the one thing that kept people in the ice water longer than other people? It was one thing. It was encouragement. It was just encouragement. And so we think about leadership of being, this challenging thing. And I think oftentimes it's just encouraging people. It is. It's just a matter of just pouring. Again, it's a word play here, but pouring courage into other people. And number 10, the final thing I'll say about leadership in these leadership musings is UCLA Grad School of Management surveyed over 1,300 senior executives. 71% of them said that this one thing was the quality that mattered most to succeed. This one thing. What was that one thing? What was this one thing that these senior executives said is the one most important thing that people need to succeed in life? It's integrity. And I think that gives you, as if you have an appetite to lead others and you're thinking like, how do I navigate leading somebody? Lead them to do the right thing. I know early in life, there's been seasons where I reflect back and I treated people wrong, because I was, caught up in myself, or maybe I even did the wrong thing. And most of the time it was just being stupid and immature or dumb. But I remember one time that I was in the financial business early, and I was recruiting. I was a recruiter, and somebody told me, here's how you can recruit people. You can call, if you want the best salespeople in the world, call a car dealership and say, hey, I met with this sales guy, and he was incredible, and he was really good, but I forgot his name. Do you remember him? And the receptionist was like, oh, I don't know. Was it John Smith? Was John a really good salesman? Yeah, that was him. So I'd get on the phone with John, and I'd say, John, hey, we met. I was out there looking for a car, and I was wondering if you talk about coming over to me to be a financial guy. And that strategy of doing that was disingenuous. But what I was trying to do is get the best salesperson, because those were the good communication skills, and move them into the financial business. And this is something I was taught. And I did that a few times, and I thought about it. I go, wow, this strategy lacks integrity. And I know some of you are like, well, you couldn't see that up front. No, I was caught up in the whirlwind of life. And that's when I completely made shifts in the way I was pursuing this financial career, because I realized, gosh, I got suckered into this mentality that you cut corners to meet your objectives. And I thought to myself, I may not be the smartest person on a go forward basis. I may not even be the hardest working. I'll do my best on both. But what if I just out integrity everybody? That's what I thought. At that point, I remember saying, what if I just out integrity everybody? That seems to be a good approach. Is it perfection? Actually, it's far from perfection. But I think if you can just teach others to out integrity, I think they're going to find themselves in a place in life that they won't regret. And so if you are challenged to figure out how to lead others, just lead them to do the right thing. So those are my leadership musings of today. And I hope it helps you as you think about your role in leadership and you think about others and how important this is, especially as this election is, as I'm talking right now, the election is next week. And everything does rise and fall on leadership. And so we're called to be leaders in our community, in our family, and oftentimes beyond. So thank you for your time today. And remember, you think different when you think long-term. Have a great day.